This message comes from Databricks, the data and AI company. Are your AI agents working? Most aren't reliable for business. You need AI that's accurate. Agent Bricks, AI agents grounded in your data and built for your goals.
Everyone and their mother, father, sister, or cousin has talked about it, been on it, or is thinking about it. GLP-1s. And now, the OG influencer of our time, maybe of all times, Oprah Winfrey, has put her official stamp of approval on its benefits. Her new book, Enough, co-authored by endocrinologist Dr. Ania Jastreboff, exposes what we've gotten wrong about obesity. That it's not a personal failing, but a disease that requires empathy and understanding. And Oprah, whose weight has been the subject of public ridicule for the majority of her career, feels like the perfect spokesperson for this cultural reframe of obesity. Oprah herself has had a long history of platforming fad diets, trends, and diet companies that claim to be the solution for weight loss. And now, after leaving the board of Weight Watchers in 2024, Oprah is joining a growing group of Americans using GLP-1s. And as obesity rates drop and GLP-1 usage goes up, I can't help but wonder, are we having the right conversation, or is this just scratching the surface? To help me answer this question, I have Dr. Kellie Carter Jackson, chair of the Africana Studies Department at Wellesley College, and the co-host of the podcast This Day, which is doing a year-long series on America 250 and 50 weeks that shaped America.
Hey there.
And Dr. Mara Gordon, family physician and NPR's Real Talk with a Doc columnist.
Thank you.
Okay, let's jump in. Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luse, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. I want to start with you, Kellie. If you could, can you give a truncated history of Oprah's public weight loss journey?
Oh my gosh, this is decades long, but from 1988, that moment she wheels out the wagon of fat, she loses over 60 pounds on a all liquid diet. It's something that she says she really regretted doing, not a very healthy way to lose weight at all. As the years go by, she gains all of that weight back. Then she drops that weight again. In 1994, she's running a marathon with the Marine Corps. She's at peak fitness. She hires Bob Greene, who becomes her personal trainer and thereby her best friend. And then over the decades, her weight sort of yo-yos. She goes up, she goes down, and then her gaining the weight again when she features herself on the cover of her magazine. This is in 2009 with the caption, "How did I let this happen again?" And it's a version of her as thin and a version of her as overweight. And it really sort of shapes the whole narrative that we have of her until about 2023. And this is when I saw it at the premiere of the Color Purple musical movie. Once again, she had sort of changed her body. And this is the iteration that we're seeing today.
I wonder, and how has watching her kind of journey with weight loss and weight gain over the decades shaped cultural conversations around weight loss?
I think it shaped this idea that we are sort of never enough, that with all that Oprah has accomplished, and she's accomplished quite a bit, and, she is a billionaire, she has been a kingmaker, she has been the top influencer, and yet this is something that she feels has really kept her from achieving peak status, being thin, being skinny. And I think it sets this standard that is sort of unachievable for a lot of people, that you can do everything in the world, but if you're not thin, it kind of won't matter.
That is, wow, that's a really deep sentiment that you just laid out. I mean, that's something that's crossed my mind in the past few years, seeing Oprah go, back to Weight Watchers a few years ago, I think in the 2010s, and then now in the 2020s, embraced GLP-1s, but in a very public way. She had a television special that you can stream now on Disney Plus, where she brought out, a ton of experts and kind of reframed her personal history with weight gain and weight loss and talked about GLP-1s and, and kind of raised them, as she does in this book, as the solution to not just the disease that is obesity as it's framed in the book, but also all of the attendant issues that come with it, both social and personal. Dr. Gordon, you wrote an article about the rise in GLP-1s in 2024, and you point out that while its use may help solve weight loss, quote unquote solve, it doesn't address fat phobia. Why did you feel it was important to make this distinction?
Just to frame my perspective, I'm a primary care doc and I call myself an anti-diet doctor. And so what that means is I am basically a primary care physician who does not yell at my patients to lose weight. And that's quite radical because there's a lot of body shame in healthcare.
Yeah.
And so I want to say from the outset that, I prescribed GLP-1 agonists for many years. I'm not opposed to their use, and they can be really life-changing medicines. They can reduce your blood sugar, they can protect the heart, protect the kidneys, the liver. I think as these medications have become more popular specifically for the purpose of making our bodies smaller, I've really noticed a blurring of the lines between what's medical and what's cultural. And I think Oprah has really missed an opportunity to help her huge audience, explore how medical problems can be associated with adiposity. We call it it's a mouthful, but adiposity-based chronic disease.
Like adipose tissue, basically body fat, right?
Right.
And these diseases you're talking about have to do with the body fat surrounding your organs.
Right. We call that visceral adiposity, right? And so that's like fatty tissue in the liver, fatty tissue around the heart that can cause real metabolic dysfunction. That's sort of a separate issue, although it can be related, but it's all very blurry between those issues, which GLP-1s are excellent at treating, and I'm so grateful for that they exist. And then how somebody might experience fat phobia or weight stigma, right? And I will say these medications are not always great at treating the experience of weight stigma, right? Because weight stigma is such a shapeshifter, right? It's different in different contexts. And so Oprah is under intense scrutiny. She experiences, I'm sure, just endless weight stigma as such a, fixture in Hollywood. Whereas, somebody who's, hanging out with their kids at the playground in their leggings and their sweatshirt, maybe me, that's a totally different context. And I don't experience fat phobia in that situation because I'm surrounded by, the diversity of normal bodies, at my local playground, right? So I think we're sort of blurring the sort of cultural experience of fatness from a very narrow medical definition of adiposity-based chronic disease.
Coming up,
health is a really complicated word, and it doesn't really have a clear definition.
more from Dr. Kellie Carter Jackson and Dr. Mara Gordon after the break.
This message comes from Cook Unity. Cooking quality meals takes time, but it doesn't have to be your time. Choose from a rotating seasonal menu of over 300 meals. Commitment-free subscriptions start as low as $11 a meal. Just heat and eat. Taste comfort and craftsmanship in every bite from the award-winning chefs behind Cook Unity. Go to cookunity.com/minute or enter code MINUTE before checkout to get 50% off your first order.
This message comes from Whole Foods Market. Follow your wellness goals and save big with sales on supplements and vitamins. Explore an abundance of high-quality multivitamins, probiotics, and protein powders. Keep good habits going strong. Cook homemade meals featuring sustainable wild-caught sockeye salmon and many more delicious and lean protein options. For wellness when you need it, shop Smart Meal shortcuts to stay motivated, like ready-to-eat salad kits. Shop all things wellness at Whole Foods Market.
This message comes from Grainger. Grainger knows that as an HVAC technician, you and your digital multimeter are in high demand. So when a noisy office HVAC turns out to be a failing blower motor, you don't break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product information, you can select the product you need to keep everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I read Oprah's book, Enough, which literally just came out this past week. And one of the things that I kept thinking when I was reading the book is there is a lot of talk about how great GLP-1s can be, everything it's done for her, everything it's done for Dr. Ania Jastreboff's patients. Dr. Jastreboff works at the Yale School of Medicine, where she's come across a lot of patients who asked to be put on GLP-1s, or that's a good option for them. And she kind of talks about, patients whose names have been changed or composite patients, and describes their experiences. And one of the things that keeps coming up in all these really heartbreaking personal stories that are shared by both the patients and patient composites, as well as Oprah throughout the book, are all of these instances of fat phobia that they're experiencing, all of the stigma that comes from living in a larger body. And then fat phobia is touched on very lightly in the book. Oprah does kind of cop to how some of the episodes of her show have kind of contributed to some of that fat phobia. And she kind of, apologizes and tries to do penance, I guess, for mercy from the reader. The focus goes back to GLP-1s and just how much life gets better on them without really digging into are people's lives getting better maybe because they're experiencing less fat phobia. And never mind the fact that the GLP-1s don't actually take the fat phobia away. They just can make it easier to move through the world, buy clothes, not get unsolicited comments from other people, to possibly go through the world much more unnoticed than you might if you're in a larger body. I also want to note that in Oprah's book, there's a lot of emphasis on qualifying obesity as a disease. This comes back a lot. It's a disease. You can't help it. People don't want to, eat everything. When you have obesity, you have this disease that gives you food noise, which I don't know if this is a medical term, Mara. I don't know if this is a medical term.
It's not, but it's in the popular consciousness for sure.
Yeah. Yes, I see it all over TikTok. The doctor describes it as a disease that you can see or something that has visual markers. At one point, the doctor says, you might be thinking, why do I have this? Or why does my brother have this? Or why does my neighbor have this? I don't know. There's a lot of framing there that I was like, huh? And also assumes that you may be wondering why your neighbor is so fat. That's not crossed my mind, but I don't know. What do you think about this framing, Mara?
Yeah, well, this is a really hot topic of discussion in the medical world. So BMI is traditionally how we have defined obesity, like a BMI of 30 or above. And BMI is basically a measure for weight for height, as everybody I'm sure knows. And, BMI has a pretty wild history. It was developed in the 19th century by this mathematician, a Belgian guy named Adolphe Quetelet, and he was obsessed with defining the average man. And I think the medical field has really started to rely on BMI in many ways to define obesity, that I think it's sort of an inappropriate reliance on it because it's just so easy to measure.
To the book's credit, they describe it as something that should be used as a screening tool as opposed to, the over-reliance that you talk about. They do make that concession.
Which is great. And I think there needs to be a lot of nuance in this discussion. But there's lots of discussion in the medical literature right now about if it's not defined by BMI, how do we define it? There's sort of this movement towards what we call again, a mouthful, adiposity-based chronic disease. And I really prefer to take that approach of sort of moving beyond BMI just because it's such a blunt instrument and it's really, really stigmatizing, to really looking at chronic diseases instead, right? And I will say every day in my primary care clinic, I have a very general practice. I see all comers. I have tons of thin patients who have really advanced diabetes and cardiovascular disease, right? And we do them a disservice if we're not checking for those things. And I have patients who live in bigger bodies who have stone cold normal cholesterol, stone cold normal blood pressure. So I think anybody who's on the clinical front lines of medicine knows that BMI is inadequate.
Well, I think we have these certain ways that we project on what disease means and what kind of level of care you should get, or what kind of level of attention you should get, or what kind of stigma you should get too. We've done this, when it comes to AIDS or HIV, the way that we look at different diseases in society that affects how you might be treated. And so I think that shifting that language is a part of the way of, if I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt, trying to attack fat phobia and to say oh, it's not their fault. And I might say that it sort of takes away the joy that we all get from food. Who hasn't been to a birthday party or wedding and asked, when are they cutting the cake? There's something that we all get when we gather together and consume food at holidays, at parties, at group outings, that is very joyful and very human. And to sort of strip that away, to sort of force people to only think about food as just a mode of survival and not a part of our humanity, I think robs people of their ability to live their lives fully and freely.
That's a really good reflection, Kellie. It's a really good reflection in all of the things that we've been discussing, and not just us in this conversation, but all the things that we as a culture have been discussing in regards to GLP-1s. Is health getting lost in the conversation?
Health is a really complicated word, and it doesn't really have a clear definition. And I think it's really unique and it's really individual, to each person. And so when my patients come in, and I hear all day, every day, I hear things like, I got to lose weight. I want to be healthy. Like, I want to be thinner so that I can be healthy. I try to pause for a moment and just unpack what my patient's getting at. And I think for some of my patients, weight loss can be really a healthier state of being for them, but it's not true for everybody. So, somebody with like a history of disordered eating, really focusing on weight loss can be really psychologically harmful. Whereas like being 10 pounds heavier, who cares, right? Whereas, somebody who has really advanced diabetes, weight loss can be transformative and can prolong their life and make them just feel so much better. So I think it's really, really unique what it means to be healthy. And I think that's where I just was hoping for a little bit more from Oprah. Like, there's so many ways to live a healthy life. And for some people, that's taking pleasure in food. That's a peaceful relationship with food. For some people, that is, being able to keep up with their kids and exercise regularly. For some people, it's sleeping well, right? Like it's really unique. And it's just so much more complicated than meets the eye.
Kellie, after studying Oprah for so long, what does Oprah's promotion of GLP-1s represent?
This is going to sound so bad, but I feel like it's another layer of aspiration and exclusion that her audience feeds off. Like, she, throughout the years, has always presented sort of objects to us that we should aspire to either buy or obtain or have, whether it's clothes or cars or designers or whatever it is, books even. And I think that like we uphold skinniness as a status symbol. It is something to be obtained. It is something to be won. It is something to be prized. And because of that, I feel like it doesn't matter how successful you are. If you don't have it, you're not in the club. And so there's something about being able to have enough money to afford these drugs. They're very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know plenty of people who want to be on them and cannot afford them.
And cannot afford it. And it's a part of that exclusion. It's almost like the new, Gucci bag. Oh, you want this? You can't have this. Like it becomes a status symbol if you can attain to get on these drugs and if you can attain skinniness. And it just makes me sad because I think about all the people who are so accomplished, like, Serena Williams, who's also pushing weight loss medication. And it's like, you have 23 Grand Slams. You won one while pregnant. Like, why is like skinny another trophy on your mantle for you? It's not needed. It's not needed.
Oh my gosh. Mara, Kellie, thank you both so much. This was a phenomenal conversation. I can't imagine unpacking this new turn in the story of GLP-1s and in the story of Oprah with two better people. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was Dr. Kellie Carter Jackson, chair of the Africana Studies Department at Wellesley College and co-host of the podcast This Day, and Dr. Mara Gordon, family physician and NPR's Real Talk with the Doc columnist. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Alexis Williams.
This episode was edited by
Nina Pathak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luse. Talk soon.
This message comes from Midi Health. Co-founders Joanna Strober and Dr. Kathleen Jordan discuss why they started a virtual care platform to empower and educate women in perimenopause and menopause.
Historically, perimenopause and menopause have been very stigmatizing. So people haven't wanted to admit that they're in perimenopause and menopause, as though it was like embarrassing, which is insane. It's just something happening to your body, right? But we've been embarrassed about it. So one of the things that we're trying to do is destigmatize these topics. Perimenopause and menopause are just women's health. So what we try to do is we try to educate women all the time. Maybe it's your hormones, and we would like to help you.
Yeah, and I find women actually want to talk about it. It's one of the things they always comment at Midi is that they finally feel heard. One of the ways that women find Midi is actually from other women. That's actually a common way that people find us, and I think it's meaningful.
Discover how Midi can help care for you at joinmidi.com.